Lieberman, who was the guy who pushed for raising the threshold to get into the Knesset up to 3.25% of the vote. And his aim, many people thought, was to get rid of some of the smaller Arab parties, that they wouldn't get over the threshold. What did they do? They all came together in one group, have done really well.
Right. Yeah,
as one party.
May have backfired.
Mm.
Well, Mr. Netanyahu is claiming a big win ahead of the final results as we reported, but all that is clear right now is that the election is really far from over. For a reaction from Isaac Herzog's campaign, we're joined now by Foreign Communications Advisor Gabriel Sassoon in Tel Aviv. Great to have you again. So again, as we've been saying, this all comes down to coalition building. What kind of coalition will Herzog's team be able to cobble together?
Well, hopefully a coalition that's a centre-left coalition to overturn 9 long years of Netanyahu's reign.
Are you disappointed in this? I mean, the polls were pointing to a win, at least on the initial round of, between head-to-head with Herzog and Netanyahu, a win for Mr. Herzog. It's not on the exit polling, at least, showing that that's happened. Why do you think that is? Do you think it was all this, what some are calling fear-mongering?
We actually polled 2, 3 or 4 seats higher than we were polling initially a few days ago. So we did very well for ourselves. What's happened is the right wing has actually shrunk, and there's been a splintering on the right. Some of the votes from the far right have shifted over to the Likud. So really, this election is far from over, and it's not worth listening to Netanyahu's spin at this point. We've got to wait until the actual results are in, and then an actual coalition can be formed on the centre left. I have no doubt about it.
I'm curious to know what you think, what kind of role the joint Arab list is going to play in all of this. I mean, the Israeli Arabs are turning out in higher numbers compared to previous elections, Gabriel. Do you expect the alliance of Arab parties will support Herzog?
Well, they've said that they won't join a Herzog coalition, but it's certainly very important that that they nominate, they recommend Herzog as Prime Minister. You can hear behind me the crowd is shouting for an upheaval for Netanyahu to be overturned and for Herzog to become Prime Minister. And what's important is that the Arab parties recommend Herzog as the Prime Minister to the President so that he can nominate Herzog so that he can form the next government.
But I guess, Gabriel, the question is the numbers, and we're watching Mr. Herzog speak now. In fact, we do have translation now, so let's listen in to what Mr. Herzog is saying.
A small piece of paper and into this wall, and there I put down 2 verses from our Jewish sources. One of them is from the Psalms, which asks for peace for Jerusalem, and the other verse is from the book of Josiah, about speaking about helping the poor and bringing the roof over their heads. And this is the very agenda of the Zionist Union. Both things. So you should know, thank you, you should know that we achieved a lot. There is a huge achievement, a remarkable achievement that we managed today. Since the elections of 1992, when Yitzhak Rabin was elected, we never achieved such a result. And it is very nice for me to be here with you, together with Michal, and it is very important for me to say to you all, but please wait. Well, you actually deserve it. You deserve all of it. But what is important for me to say is that we could not reach this moment without our partnership, without my partnership with Tzipi Livni, our wonderful partner Tzipi Livni. Tzipi, You are wonderful. You are amazing. You are a true partner. Tzipi is a remarkable, brave woman with intuition, with a lot of common sense, with a feeling of mission that we share and we have shared during the whole campaign. And this partnership will bring us, in the end, toward these huge changes in the Israeli political scene. And this result enables us to get back to power. Maybe we should wait until the true results. What we have now is just exit polls. Everything is open, wide open. I spoke to all party leaders today. We're leaders of the parties, different parties. We do not know what will be the final results because some of the parties are just on the edge, election threshold-wise. They might clear the threshold, or they might fall short of the threshold. But we will take every effort to form a truly social government for Israel, a government with a social agenda. The government will be a good government for Israel, a government which will bring Israel back to be a Jewish and democratic state, a welfare state, a state which strives for peace with all its neighbors. And therefore, I call upon all the factions with social agenda, socially minded factions, to unite under my leadership into a government of social peace and reconciliation, a true government of social reconciliation. This government will address the difficulties that Israeli citizens suffer, will overcome the social gap and give hope to the younger generations, will fight the hiking prices, and will bring the real social change to Israel. The people want social change, and there is a majority among the voters for bringing true change, true social change to Israel. Livni and I formed a negotiation team which will act to form the government under my leadership, and will do everything in our power, given the true results of this election. And this night, we're not going to take any decisions, so you can go and sleep because that's what you deserve. You worked so hard, you gave everything, you gave your heart, put your heart and soul. And therefore, I would like to tell you, thank you from the bottom of my heart to the tens of thousands of our activists, volunteers, citizens, all those who put heart and soul during this entire election period, those who understand that Israel needs a change. You did something remarkable today, something huge, and you brought us back to our good times, to the great times of the Labour Party. And here I would like to thank several people on a personal level. First of all, to our volunteers and our activists, to the leaders of our headquarters, to all those who did all the work that we're supposed to do, to head of our election headquarters, Leighton Kabel. I would like also to thank our wonderful Knesset faction, our wonderful faction, best candidates that one can imagine, who would work in the Knesset for the benefit of the people of Israel. And I want to conclude with a personal thanks to my family, first of all, to my wonderful wife, Michali. Without her, I am actually a half human being. I would also want to thank my family, my children, my mother. You did not see me much during those months because this goal to change the fate of our country is a very difficult mission. And for this purpose, we all here our party, the party that established the State of Israel, is here to work for change. And I would like to invite my partner, Tzipi Livni, and her husband, dear husband, who also took active part in our election campaign, her husband, Naftali. Tzipi Livni is now taking the floor, and we would also like to hear Moshe Kahlon speaking at his headquarters. But let's hear a little bit what he has to say. I'm very proud.
Isaac Herzog of the Zionist Union Party thanking everyone. Tzipi Livni there, the former Justice Minister in the Netanyahu government, who left the coalition so famously, and that all sort of predicated this election. We're fortunate to have Mr. Herzog's foreign communications advisor, Gabriel Sassoon, with us. We heard there Mr. Herzog saying, let's await the results, calling on socially minded factions to join him. It sounds like the horse trading has begun. How much support is he going to need to form a government?
Well, there you had it. You had Isaac Herzog standing next to his wonderful wife, and he's going to make a fantastic prime minister. And he's also standing right there. He was standing next to the Secretary General of the Labour Party, a fantastic member of Knesset, Hilik Bar. It's a fantastic team, and it's going to make a fantastic team, and they're going to be able to put together a coalition with parties like Kulanu, with Moshe Kahlon and Yair Lapid's Yesh Atid. What's happened? The fat lady has far from sung in this case. We do not know. The parties are neck and neck, and it's a matter of coalition negotiations. And let me tell you, it's entirely possible to form a centre-left coalition at this point. Israel is tired. 9 long years of Netanyahu. It's tired, and the social parties in the centre of the spectrum, their demands are exactly the same, but in many cases, as the platform of the Zionist Union of Herzog's government, as Herzog's future government.
And Herzog also talking about in that speech there that the Israelis want change, that he wants to address the difficulties that the Israelis have been enduring. He was specifically talking about the social gap, the income inequality, and also the high cost of living in Israel. What kind of change do the people want?
Well, you'd have to say, after a campaign that focused on socioeconomic issues, after a campaign about the disastrous housing crisis, a campaign about domestic economic issues like the insane cost of living in this country, it's difficult to see how it makes any sense to have a return of the same prime minister that's brought Israelis this disastrous economic situation. It requires a new government, it requires new leadership, and Isaac Herzog's the man to form this government. Look, what Americans and your international viewers may or may not know is that it's a complex electoral system here. It encourages a lot of small parties. It's a proportionate system. There's many small parties. It's a fractious parliament, and it is a matter of these coalition negotiations. And Isaac Herzog will work in the coming days and weeks to form a coalition with all the parties on the centre and the left of the political spectrum. Yep. And I believe, and also the religious parties, and I believe it's certainly possible. And again, Isaac Herzog will make an excellent prime minister.
You're speaking like a good campaign man there, Gabriel. He hasn't won yet. In fact, according to the exit polls, he's a seat behind Likud. But I've got to admire your optimism there. And who knows, as you say, maybe that coalition can be cobbled together. You're the foreign communications advisor. If Mr. Netanyahu keeps his job, as he so desperately wants to do, how would the foreign scene, the relations scene, look with the Prime Minister who's basically said that the peace process is over? No two-state solution, more settlements. How would the foreign relations situations look under Mr. Netanyahu?
Well, much the same as it has for the past several years.
Well, it looks worse, wouldn't it? It'd look worse because he said no two-state solution now.
Well, look, there are certainly international actors that want to do harm to Israel, no matter who the government is and no matter what Israel does. But there's no question that Netanyahu's leadership hasn't helped. Just look at the relations with the United States that have suffered in the last weeks and months. With Prime Minister Netanyahu prepared to use the U.S. Congress as a domestic electioneering campaign style. I mean, it's extraordinary what he's done. Israel absolutely needs new leadership, and you would have to say that it wouldn't be a terribly good result for Israel if Netanyahu is returned for a fourth term as a result of horse trading behind the scenes. I think it's clear, if you look at the results as a whole, if you look at the blocks on the left, the centre and the right, you can see a clear pattern of people wanting change. They want domestic, primarily socio-economic change in this country, and that will also bleed into international issues, of course.
Gabe Sassoon, Foreign Communications Advisor for the Herzog campaign. Great having you there on the scene. Thanks for that perspective.
Appreciate it, Gabriel. Thank you. Being very optimistic. I mean, he's speaking like they've won, but
right.
They're a seat behind on the exit polling.
On the exit of the Herzog campaign.
See who they can pull onside.
Well, we